Hi, welcome to my channel. I found this while I was surfing the web, and I listened to a little bit of it, and I decided that I had to do a reaction to it on my channel. I hope Destiny doesn't copyright strike me. And if this causes interview to go over to Destiny's channel and subscribe or anything, make sure you put it in his comment section that I sent you. Just just to see if it becomes enough of a thing that he mentions me, or if he watches any of my videos or anything. That would be cool. I'm a fan. I'm sorry. I'm a fan of his. I just like how he debates and how he conversates and stuff. I mean, you might see what I mean. You might like the way he does it. You might not. I do. Whatever. Let's start.
That's Andy. Keep hating your life then, working class Andy.
What? Haas is doing an Anna manifesto? Why? Oh my god.
I promised Maria to get revenge. Over and over in your head like a gif? It's not the truth, huh? Dot GIF, like
Okay,
the
this is
peanut.
an end. Hold
Say
on.
more logic to be
Hold on. Let's see if I can.
Hippity hoppity, the war crimes don't stop it.
So any tips on getting started and going
Keep
to the
hating
gym?
your life then,
Yeah,
working
It
what's
just
class Andy.
seems so overwhelming.
What's up, man?
Oh, Benna.
Not much. I watched you and talking to Haas and Nick Fuentes. I don't usually watch that much of that sort of content, but I felt like it would be interesting to talk to you because it feels to me like you were talking to people who you probably have too much of a how do I put this? Like a brand relationship with, like your communities are sort of like at war with each other.
I don't
you
really
know?
care that much about that. I mean, they are, but sure.
He's saying that he has a negative bias against these people. He just won't say it that way, though.
I think it plays more into like how much people are willing to like be faithful auditors of each other, right? Like
For other people, it might be. I understand what
better.
you're saying, yeah. I have a hard time taking Haas seriously.
Yeah, I'm
because
not
of
saying
him
it's a bad
personally,
thing or
sure.
anything, but
Yeah, I know what you're coming from.
I mean, I'm friends with Haas. Haas is one of my friends. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know how he's like. Like, he has a pretty hot temper sometimes.
Well, it's
But,
not his temper. I
mean-
consider him to be genuinely a stupid person. Like, that's the issue, but
Oh,
I
don't-
understand you
Haas
probably
is
disagree.
definitely not a stupid person. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations
Sure.
with him. Haas is very well read. Like,
Sorry, I've seen Haas, who they're talking about in debates and stuff, and honestly, I think he's an idiot too. So
in a lot of the difficult literature, I would say, just like having read a lot of the same things myself.
Okay.
So I have a lot of respect for Haas. I'm not gonna lie, like I've spent a long time talking to him. It's hard to like translate that sort of stuff to the sort of medium of Twitch. I think like Twitch isn't really a great medium for like say talking about the history of Western.
oh, and I'm recording this, so I'm gonna post it as a standalone video. I don't think I'm gonna keep the stream, but this is gonna be its own standalone video.
Philosophy or something like that, like these like large sort of problems or large fields of inquiry, right? Like that's like usually you want to have like a group of people who are like reading the same sorts of things, more devoted to like having a deep discussion about stuff like that, more like a college course, right? Is like where you'd have like a better environment ideally for talking about such things. I don't know if it's like if it's like evident to you just through like your interactions with him on Twitch or whatever, but Haas is not a dumb person. Like I don't think you're a dumb person either. I don't even think Nick is a dumb person, but I think Nick is probably dumber just on like a basic level.
Okay, I don't think Nick is dumb at all. I disagree with him on things. Haas, well, I mean, regardless, obviously, I know you're friends with Haas. We're not here to discuss Haas's intelligence. Yeah. What did you want to chat about?
I'm just more interested in like what do you think is like the situation right now? Like, how do you view the world moment that we're in? Like, do you think we're like in a good place right now, or like do you see things like getting better from here, or like getting worse? Or we could limit this to just like America specifically.
I think in some ways we've gotten way, way, way better, but in other ways I think we're kind of flying apart at the seams, and we don't really understand why.
What ways have things gotten better?
I mean, in very obvious senses, things like medical advances, things like the general state of peace and security around the world, things like the overall general health of people, especially in third world countries. I guess you can point to obesity and stuff. Obvious technological
Saying
stuff.
like globally.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, technologically and stuff. But I was trying to pause the video and it wouldn't pause for me for some reason.
You're just more talking about like the global state of like technology and like the advancement of these sorts of technological improvements and, you know, access to more advanced infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera.
The stuff like
that's more true on, like,
most
global level.
Yeah, probably. Things that like Western people would point to and go like, oh, look, we're doing good because I can tell because of this thing, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm not really interested in like Western. Like I don't really care about like Western people. I think that's kind of a bullshit.
He just didn't you hear him? Follow back. I'm not gonna rewind the video, but he said he wanted to talk about just America. You can rewind the video.
Bullshit category, frankly, but I mean, I was saying more specifically like I'm in America, like America particularly. Do you say that things have gotten better here, let's say, in the last 40 years, or worse?
I mean, it's with respect to what? It depends, right? In terms of like race relations and like sexism and stuff, yeah, I think we've gotten way better. In terms of
in like
access to education, way
like,
better. Yeah.
Like you could say the quality of life or whatever, however you want to put it. Like I would say like maybe the amount of like the quality of life of people, I think, is primarily the thing, right? Because actually 40 years ago, like on average, people had more like disposable income, you know, and they owed a lot less. We had like a lot less debt, like consumer debt and like debt for like medical
quality
debt,
of life
debt,
gets like really difficult to like measure at that point though, right? Like 40 years ago, people might have had less debt and more disposable income, but like not everybody had a cell phone or access to the internet, right? Because those weren't things that existed 40 years ago.
Yeah, but they also didn't know that they didn't have a cell phone. So how could that be like impacting their quality of life if it's like a good that they can only imagine?
Sure.
You know?
I mean, 300 years ago, people didn't know that there were cures for cancer. So how can they, right? I mean, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's really difficult to quantify. Like, yeah, it's difficult to quantify.
But I do think that like quality of life has a lot more to do with like comparison within like your immediate like phenomenological reality, like, you know, like the immediate generations around you, like the things that's like how you're like you compare your quality of life to like amongst your peers and amongst people that like you see or like you've known of, you know what I mean? You're not really comparing it in like this like absolute like larger sense because you can't really.
Oh, hold on, there might be a problem with like loading and stuff. Skipped a little. Let's see if I can fix that. Hold on. Okay, let's see if that makes it better.
Really compare your quality of life right now to someone like 500 years ago because it's like a totally different world. Like, well, the world works totally differently.
You absolutely can, right? But I mean, like, I'm saying that it's a challenging thing to do.
How would you do that?
Well, by saying that 500 years ago, like, fucking 30% of women died during childbirth or whatever, and that doesn't happen anymore. Like, that's one way I could compare.
But they expected that to happen.
Okay, but that, well, I mean, if that's what we're gonna say, then in that case, every single quality of life is just neutral because it's always compared to itself, right? Like,
well, so then what we would do is we would compare like the current American quality of life or like the trajectory of the American quality of life of the last 40 years to say other geopolitical hegemonies over the last 40 years and their trajectories. We could compare that way, right? Because now we're just comparing like with like people in the same world historical moment.
I mean, I don't know why you think proximity in time is more important than proximity in like geography or vice versa. Like, could I just point to the fact that these people live in different worlds, like people 100 years ago lived in different worlds? Like, that seems strange to do.
Well, I think there's only one world, right? So like we all live in like this world right now. We're all alive at the same
Well,
time,
but we don't all-
and
not-
in the
but
same space.
not
because
really
we're all
though,
on the
right?
same planet. I'm connected to you right now. I
Yeah,
don't know
but like,
where you
are you
could be
more
anywhere.
connected to an American 30 years ago, or to somebody living in Sudan today? Right? I think that like
Well,
I think that the time and
Actually,
geography are both pretty.
I
important
would say
things.
personally, I have a lot more I found in common with like a lot of foreigners who I've made friends with through the internet and various other things who are like sort of see things on a global perspective more.
I think he's talking past nuance. He's missing a lot of nuance here, in my opinion.
Similarly to me
Oh god, this conversation is gonna be super boring.
about things. Like I find it very difficult personally
Hold on,
to
wait,
talk
okay, wait.
to Americans.
Yeah, so
even though
wait,
I'm American.
backing up, who do you share more in common with, like in terms of just like quality of life, things that you do your day-to-day basis, like somebody living in a country like the United States today or 30 years ago, or somebody living in like a sub-Saharan impoverished African country, right? Like I don't think the fact that we all
What do you
share.
mean by like a sub-Saharan? Where do you mean specifically? Like I don't know. I'm like Africa's like pretty diverse in regards to.
Sure, I
how,
used
like,
Sudan
what-
as a country before,
like,
right? Do you think that you share more in
Okay,
common?
Sudan?
Yeah, with somebody that lives like in Sudan today, or in one of the like 6 ongoing genocided areas today, or somebody that like is from America like 30 years ago, right? I think the geography is pretty important. I don't think it's. I think
But say
saying
on a class level, like what I'm doing to like survive in the world, I probably have more in common with someone in a similar like class position as I would be or whatever 30 years ago in a Western, as you would say, or American country like zone, sure. But in other ways, the person in the Sudan also has more in common with like we both probably have iPhones.
I don't know if that is true. I don't know across the ports of African countries. I don't know how many people have access to technology.
That's not necessarily true. I mean, it's wow. That's a pretty big assumption, actually. That's a huge assumption.
But I'm just saying that like I don't think that it's necessary.
iPhones are pretty proliferated. Like it's been pretty. We've hit like pretty much like we've hit like pretty like almost everyone in the world, if they want to have like a smartphone, like has one. There's been like
Yeah, I'm almost
they
100.
Okay, this is funny. This guy just said that just because there are thousands of iPhones out there are more that everybody has one. Just because that's not how it works. Am I missing something here? Just let me know if I'm missing something. Just give me timestamps and everything too, because this guy's not really understanding much. I don't think.
I'm positive that's not true. I don't think that's the case.
Really?
I think there's a
Well,
lot
I'd
of
say
places
you'd
in
be
Africa and
surprised.
poor places that don't even have access to the internet.
No, they don't have access to the internet, but they will. But like they'll have these things too. Like
Along with a cell phone comes access to the internet. Even if you don't have service with your phone, if you have a phone, you have access to the internet through Wi-Fi. And places like Circle K and McDonald's, like restaurants and, well, I'm talking about America. I mean, there are places, I'm sure, even in Africa, where there's free Wi-Fi. And with a phone, you get Wi-Fi choices. Just, check out the chat. Hey, Blinda, what's up? These guys are bots, right? This Mamang Galax. This guy's a bot, right? I think he is. Whatever. Yeah, you came in the middle of me doing a random reaction to Destiny having a discussion with somebody. I don't remember who he's talking to or anything. Um, yeah, just whatever.
Like, because they're used by like larger, they're like handed out kind of by a lot of like American, like what do you think the USAID's doing over there? Like, the whole, there's so many programs of like giving people this technology out there. It's a big part of like our like geopolitical strategy right now. You have like Elon Musk trying to like, put up Starlink or whatever, so we can tie like the entire African continent to like our internet, right? Because like these things are already proliferating. Like, that's what I'm saying. I think you'd be surprised how much they'll have iPhones all over the world, or just like phones in general. Those have proliferated really fast.
Okay.
It doesn't mean everybody can afford one. That's what the nuance is. There are a lot of those things out there, but can you afford it?
Where do you want to go with this, or what's the?
Oh, I was still so basically like my contention. I think where we probably disagree the most, right, is that I see America on like a trajectory towards like a very negative trajectory over like the last 40 years, and I see that getting worse. And I don't think that things in America specifically are getting better or have been getting better for a while. I think things have been getting continually worse
With
for a long
respect
time.
to what?
The well-being, like the quality of life, like the way people imagine their futures to be, like just pretty much on almost any imaginable metric.
Well, so like
of like
the reason why I'm pushing
life,
here is because like
I think people-
not on any right, because like medically we've made improvements, technologically made improvements. So like with respect to what more particular things you think have been?
we actually have like the life expectancy has actually dropped, right, in America over this time period.
Sure, but dropped why?
For
And by how much?
myriad reasons, right?
Well, I
like,
think it's because
myriad
of
reasons.
suicide and opiate like overdoses. It's not like our medical technology has gotten worse, right?
Let's see, drug overdoses, suicide, accidents in general, car accidents, motorcycle accidents, at home DIY accidents. I'm sure there are a lot of DIY accidental deaths out there. What else? Yeah, it's gone. It's happened for myriad of reasons. You can't point to one thing and say, "Aha, that's what caused it." You can't do that. It's multifaceted again. This guy's losing nuance. He's not taking nuance into account. God.
Well, partially because like people don't want to go to the doctor and things like this because obviously our healthcare system is like a complete racket and like totally atrocious, like a crime
No,
against
I don't
humanity.
think that's what people attribute the lowering life expectancy to. It's because of the amount. I think it was because of suicides, and I think it's because of opiate overdoses is why it fell for the first time.
Well, suicide and opiate overdoses, right? That's an interesting thing. Like deaths of despair being like raising quite
You're right, Belinda. Oh, the obesity is another cause. Yes, absolutely.
drastically over the same time period. That's interesting. Like, why do you think that is?
Probably because people are lonely, would be my guess. Lonely and purposeless.
Like, why are they lonely?
Either
Or
they are really
purposeless.
bad at socializing, they don't have very many friends. We don't make good spaces in society today for people to find each other and socialize with each other. We become a little bit too atomized, especially with the internet. and
Why?
everything.
Well, social media has allowed us to separate ourselves from society, and a lot of people have chosen to do that. I'm not sure why, but a lot of people have chosen to just separate themselves from actual human interaction in lieu of online interaction. Um,
Why is that? So we made the
probably.
internet,
I
right?
think technologically, I think is a big reason why a lot of this is happening now.
Yeah, so like we made the internet, and the internet kind of destroyed our like social fabric, creating like a new social fabric, which is like the internet, right? Like now the internet is the social fabric.
Okay.
So like, where did the internet come from? Why do we have the internet?
I imagine you have some big philosophical reason why. So why don't you just tell me?
No, it's not really philosophical. It's more of like a historical question, you know, like who developed the internet, like who funded it, like
Keep
why was it
hating your
put
life
together,
then.
you know?
I mean, I
Class
think the
Andy?
U.S. military originally used it for messaging, and then I think that two people at some universities figured out that they could like ping each other back and forth, and then I think that it grew out of some like universities, like research projects, and people kind of messing around
Yeah.
with it, and then eventually there was like business application for it, and then it slowly grew from there.
Yeah, pretty much. That's like a good short way of putting it. I mean, it kind of develops out of the same like sort of scientific like research. You could call this like war socialism or something under like FDR, like going into World War II. Like this is like where the CIA, the OSS, like all of these things are being developed at the same time. You have this like whole network of like imperial technocracy, right? Like this new imperial technocracy that we put together during World War II. And like that did the Manhattan Project and all these things. I mean, the Manhattan Project directly carries over into like the early days, like DARPA and things of building the internet, because the internet is designed ultimately to be like a continuity of governance manager for like a post-nuclear state. Like if we had this internet, then you know it would be much more difficult to destroy our like means of communication and things in a nuclear exchange. So like that's why we built the internet.
Okay.
So like.
to wait a minute. Did this guy? What did he just say? Did he? I'm sorry. I'm sure Disney's following him, but me not so much. Did he say that the internet protects us from a nuclear attack because you can't really take it out? Or I'm not really following. I'm not that intelligent of a guy. So that one just went right over my head. One to admit when I'm too stupid to know something or whatever. That one was weird. I don't know. Well, let's continue watching.
So basically what I'm saying, right, is like so in that same sort of way that like this was the thing that we created, like more so I would say even than the atomic bomb was our sort of advances in like propagandistic like technology, media media technology. These sorts of things are what really won us World War II. And it's like the foundation of like our empire is like public relations and like advertising. Like you could call this psychological warfare. I mean, it's all really the same thing. And like, so this is the thing that we built. We like perfected this as an art, but it's also like sort of now destroyed like our social fabric. Like by doing this, by creating this America that we live in now, we destroyed the social fabric that like gave rise to it in the first place.
Okay.
So like that's my explanation for why things are like getting continually worse in America. It's because like we don't have a social fabric through like decades of like psychological warfare and manipulating of you know, like socialist movements and things like that, like people fighting for like the quality of life, the working class, for like say a right to healthcare, a right to all of these sorts of things. These were like the number one enemy to the like this like technocratic imperial governance that was put in during World War I and World War II, through the Cold War, and these are the people who like truly run things in this country, and they're running us into the ground. Like they don't particularly
Keep
care
hating your life then,
about
working
us,
class Andy.
except as like abstract like human resources in their game theoretical like war plans and things like this, right?
Gotcha. So what are we supposed to do? What's the next step?
What do you do in a situation like that? Like, right? Like you could say like, well, let's elect candidates, right?
This guy's smart enough to figure everything, all of the stuff out. You just explained it all. Great. Now what do you do? Uh, and this is how a lot of Destiny's conversations go. By the way, it's they give a lot of soliloquy type of talks about what's wrong and why it's wrong. And then Destiny comes up and goes, okay, do you have any solutions on that? And they uh-uh. It's funny.
Sure.
Let's
Well,
elect
I'm asking,
candidates
what
and
do you
have them
think?
stop
What
it.
do you think we should do?
What I think we should do, well, I don't really think there's like, we don't have that much agency right now in this historical moment. Like, I think that things are going to get a lot worse before there's even an opportunity to like alter the structures that we're like enslaved by here, right? Like, so I'm like a long-term optimist. I'm an optimist globally, but in regards to specifically America, I'm like a very, very pessimistic about like the next, say, 50 years of American history.
Okay.
You think I'm wrong? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, would you agree? Like, do you feel differently?
Yeah, I probably feel a little bit pessimistic, but for different reasons. But
Like, what are you pessimistic about?
I mean, like things like misinformation are, I think, really pervasive. I think that the way that we have kind of like taken to our new like ways of socializing without like giving people the tools to like live that way. So, for instance, the way that our lives are so like heavily dependent on the internet and everything, but we don't know how to have like real friends anymore and stuff like that, or maintain like healthy relationships, stuff like that. I think these are the things that are really negative in today's society. And then
That's been going on for a while now. Yeah, dude. Thieves and people who manipulate people, it sucks. I got my back stolen 2 days ago. That's not what this is about, but just influencing that, yeah, people fuck things up. It's a problem.
I mean, there's
Sure,
like
I probably disagree with you on misinformation because, like,
Yeah, of
I'm
course,
like,
no.
according to who?
yeah,
According to who? You know, I'm
Go
like more
ahead.
of like a like John Milton, a
Uh-huh.
poet.
Okay.
No, I was just asking. I don't
Oh,
know.
no,
Do you
oh,
like
sorry.
literature?
I guess not, according to Haas. So.
I don't know. I saw you had in DGG. You have like a book recommendations thing or like a little book club thing. I was looking at the conversations there because I don't really know much about DGG, but some people were posting some pretty good things. I have this guy shouts out Manhattan Silver has a picture. It's got like Fichte here. We got Kant. Rawls though. That's unfortunate. Hegel. That's some good stuff.
Okay.
I don't know. But what I was saying about like John Milton, right? Milton wrote this book called the Areopagitica. I would highly recommend it. But it's his like defense of like the value of having like, including misinformation allowed in like the public square, because like he believed that like in like the triumph of ideas like through like the single combat of like dialectical engagement.
I hate this shit when people go, well, actually, misinformation is kind of a good thing. I can't. I don't have enough oxygen. I can't bring in enough oxygen to sigh as hard as I would want to that. No. Misinformation is never a good thing. Never. It's objectively never a good thing. And if anybody wants to challenge me on that, I'm willing to defend that to the death. That's one thing I would defend, that misinformation is always a bad thing.
Like people like should be allowed to publish pretty much anything they want, and then we like have a argument about it, and like the people who are right end up triumphing. The things that are true end up being like eternally true, and the things that are false end up like falling away. So I don't really think.
Well, that's a good point, but in the meantime, there are people that would take that misinformation and put it into practice, which, depending on what kind of information they're talking about, can end up hurting or killing people. It's that's where the problem is. That's why I say misinformation is never a good thing, because it can often lead to death. And we know people dying is not a good thing.
Misinformation is like that much of a problem in that sense. Like I would say there's more misinformation from these like institutional powers than there is from like I don't know random Twitter accounts.
Okay. I mean, obviously, I would disagree basically with every part of that, but
Like what would you disagree on? Or like what?
I think
don't know.
the
I feel like
idea
I'm
that
saying
like
anything that's too absurd.
what was it? The idea that I think the idea that like people can have like a battle of ideas and the best ones always win out, I think betrays like a fundamental misunderstanding of human nature.
And that's not necessarily true either.
And the idea that like institutions
Don't you think that, like,
are
we've had,
producing
like,
more
technological
misinformation
progress?
than
Like scientific progress, like isn't that how that works? Like in science and like every field, is that like we have this like open dialogue? People put out these pretty
the
like
open
insane
dialogue doesn't
proposals.
happen in the scientific field among the public. It happens among technocrats, right? Or like the
Well,
scientific.
not necessarily.
Yes,
I mean, that's not
almost
true.
certainly necessarily. Yeah, of course.
No, there's been tons of scientific advances that don't come from like I mean, if you're looking at like the age, like where the age of science, you know, the early days of science, this is all like the technocrats, quote unquote, were just like whoever was contributing to scientific research. I mean, you
Who
go
are
back to the
going to be
alchemists or
like the
whatever.
most educated people, probably some of the generally more wealthy ones in society. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily. Because
Almost
to get
certainly
educated in
necessarily.
this
Wait,
time
hold on. If
period,
you're making
like, the church
advancements
would
in
educate you.
chemistry, if you're making advancements in chemistry, if you're, like just having the capital necessary to buy the tools and equipment you need to do these tests, probably for the last 100 years, are almost certainly going to be coming from people that are well educated, are upper educated, and have the financial means to even have the luxury to pursue that research. You're not ignoring the money required to do it, just like
well,
the fact you wouldn't have
for
to work.
100 years, sure.
Yeah.
The last 100 years, if you're talking specifically about like laboratory science, if we're talking about that,
Sure.
But you know, so I feel like science is much larger than that, right?
Well,
like,
even historically, if
there's
you
a-
look at advances in like mathematics and stuff, like a lot of this stuff is going to like.
Doesn't it all end up going back to the lab anyway? I mean, I don't know. Hold on, just got another comment. But again, misinformation and propaganda can't be eliminated. Supporting the development of critical thinking skills is the best way to counteract. Yeah, I agree with that. You can't eliminate it, but yeah, you're correct. Hold on, I think I'm gonna have to do a favor for my family. So, how about you? Hold on. I will be right back. Sorry about that. I had to do favor for family and stuff. There was something at the hub in our apartment complex, and I had to go get it. Okay, now we can. We can continue.
Like, were Plato and Aristotle people out working the fields, if you look at philosophy? Or if you look at people like Newton or people that have made major contributions to these fields, like, these are people these are scholars that sit in rooms all day, like, studying and reading and stuff. It's not like a worker in a field, invented calculus or discovered something, right? It's almost always going to be coming from, like, wealthy, like, well-educated, I don't want to say elites, but kind of, yeah.
Well, you're more like the priest class, right? Like, I don't know if you would call because like a lot of these people also, like, they're like a lot of this research is being done by priests, right? Who've taken like
I
vows
would
of, like,
easily
poverty.
call the priest class part of the elite. Yeah, of course, 100%.
Yes, the clergy is definitely part of the elite. Definitely. I don't know why you would say otherwise. Okay, I gotta go see what this is. Alright, I had to see what that was. It was like an acknowledgement thing, and instead of a raise, give you like I don't know what that was. I didn't look at it closely. It was stupid though. Let's continue.
They tend to be very well
There's, like,
educated.
an
They
elite
tend to
within
be
the priesthood.
They tend to be very well educated. They tend to have a lot of, like, financial means available to them. They carried a lot of power in society. Yeah.
Yes, the police were considered to be elite, one of elite class.
Of course, I would call the priest class, like, relatively had high social status. How would they not be part of, like, the elite class?
Because there's different types of priests, right? Like, you're talking, like, you could say, like, who has more like authority there, like a Waldensian priest, like a Cathar priest, like, or a Catholic priest, like, at the same time. Like, one of them has, like, the Roman Empire behind them and one of them doesn't, but, like, they're both priests.
Sure, but comparative within their own class structure, I'm pretty sure that the priest people, regardless of who they are, compared to the general population, are going to be more. I can't believe this is contentious to you. Wait, let's look at the other side.
I'm not.
Are you trying to say that, like, you think that a lot of, like, scientific breakthroughs just came from, like, normal random people? They just jotted down an idea and that was like.
No. That's not really what I mean. Although there are cases of, like, people, like, discovering things, like, purely accidentally, and then having these, like, findings or whatever be found to be, like, more useful by these more whatever, however you want to put it, learned or educated
No,
people.
I don't think that is the case. Unless you have like several, like, noteworthy examples. I think generally most research is funded, paid for, and done, like, by elites for elites, because it's all, like, technological advancements that are, like, utilizable by them. Whether it's ways to make capital more efficient, whether it's scientific advancements that you need to be highly learned to make advancements for. I just totally, I don't know what you're, I don't know if it's like ideologically loaded because you're coming from a very left background that you want to have the feeling that like the average person is like.
I wouldn't say I'm from like a very left background. I'm from like a very mixed background. Like I've been through, like I talk to pretty much everyone around the political spectrum. I read a lot of like what you might call leftist stuff. I read a lot of rightist stuff.
Sure, this particular claim is just really wild to me. It seems like one of the least contentious things in the world. Yeah, go ahead. What am I misunderstanding?
I think you're misunderstanding like the point that I was trying to make. Like my point was more less that like you're saying that like this battle of ideas, like in the immediate moment, it might appear that actually like a falsehood or a lie has like won. It's like been more rhetorically persuasive, like in a particular moment. What I'm saying is that in the grand scheme of time, like in like a larger picture of time, that the truth tends to win out over falsehoods.
I don't know if that is the case.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case either. How early tend to win out? Like the bad idea is thrown out. That definitely doesn't happen. An example is flat Earth. Flat Earth is a bad idea. It's been debunked. I don't know how many times. A lot. But it just doesn't go away. It's not going to go away. Just because it's wrong, it's not going to go away. It should, because it's a bad idea. It should go away, but it's not going to.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know.
So then the question is, like, so then the question would be, right? Like, do you think that the truth has won out over falsehood over the last like 2,000 years? Are we closer to having truth than we were 2,000 years ago?
I mean, in some domains, yeah, but I mean, it's hard to know like how we measure that. Do we measure that in terms of like what did we know to like what do we know to?
I think he's trying to talk in generalities, and talking in generalities doesn't really make sense. I mean, nuance matters.
Today about 2,000 years ago, or do we measure that based on like what do people today know? Like that's the difference, right? So like in some ways, like we know a lot more about ancient history and what happened today than the average person living in that time period might have known about some things going on around the world because they didn't have access to the tools. But then in another sense, half the people today in the United States believe the last election was stolen. So is that closer to the truth? Like I don't know, or half the people think.
I mean, like in a total sense, in like a sort of potential sense.
It's such an empty, hollow claim to talk about truth in a total sense because I think that you are devoid of all like insight into making a good statement there when you start to say
the word is nuance. He's missing a lot of nuance.
Something like that. Like I don't even know how we begin to
you
measure
believe in truth.
What is the truth? Even that's a difficult one. I mean, like we can do. I guess. What do you mean when you say truth? Maybe that would be a good place to start.
I would say that it's things that are it's like the beautiful and the good. The true is the beautiful and the good. Like
okay, I don't know anything about
the true is the good. It's all the same. Like everything that's good is true, and all.
What? True is not synonymous with good. I'm sorry. It just isn't. Truth and good, these things are separate. Two different things.
True things are good. Truth is truth. It reveals things as they actually are, like reality, giving like a depiction of reality as it is, as opposed to a false depiction of that. I mean, what else is truth, right?
I mean, I guess it depends on how you define it. Truth could just be statements that logically follow axiomatic things. Truth could be.
For me, truth is what best comports with reality.
Some statement about like a fact, like a descriptive fact of the matter of a thing, like things that exist in reality based on how you measure things. I don't know. I guess it depends. Saying that truth is like the good and the beauty seems a little bit vacuous. I mean, like it's almost begging the question at that point, right? Like truth and beauty, or beauty itself, is incredibly subjective.
And it's grandiose language when you're speaking in this context. He's it's if it's almost an emotional appeal, in my opinion.
So, I mean, if you ask some people, we're closer to the truth today than we were before. You're really just asking them, like, are you happier with the world today? Would you rather go back to another point, right?
So when you say something like beauty is subjective, would you say that's true?
Yeah, of course.
Like, why? How do you know that's true?
Basically by tautology. Beauty tends to be our subjective enjoyment of a thing, and subjective enjoyment things can't really be absolute truths unless you want to say it's true to an individual. Like, it's true that you can have a subjective experience about something, but I don't think that your subjective experience like imparts some objective reality onto the thing that you're observing.
But if like 100,000 people all subjectively experience the same thing as beautiful,
If
that mean
100,000
anything?
people all said that 1 + 1 was 3, no, it wouldn't mean anything. No. Or if
I
100,000
think
people...
those are the same types of judgments. Aren't you saying one's like this is like 1 + 1 is 2 is not really the same thing as like is this painting beautiful or something?
If you were to play 100,000 people from the year 200 CE some piece of music today, I don't even know if they would understand what's happening. They might totally not have an ear
Sure.
for it. And if you were to play
Yeah.
a bunch of people today, music from like pre-music history stuff, they might hear it and think it's garbage as well. So no, I don't think that you can rely on a person
Maybe.
to make an almost.
I mean, you can do
absolute-
that. I mean,
So I don't
like
think you can
something
make
that-
these absolute statements on like what is beauty. No, I don't think so.
well, I mean, I think you can, considering I have. Like, what do you mean I can't? Like, should people be arrested if they do make these?
No, hold
absolute
on. When I
claims?
say hold on, let's
God.
think for a moment. When I say you can't make a statement, do you think that I'm saying that you literally can't utter a statement? Is that what you think I just
Wow.
meant?
I'm wondering what you mean by that. Yeah, like, what do
What
you
do
Wow.
you think I
can't?
mean when I say you can't utter that statement?
Damn.
I think you mean I shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like not true, right? You can't say
Yeah,
that.
okay.
I mean, you can. I mean,
Hey,
theoretically,
well,
you can.
you mean you shouldn't say that, right? Like, so you're saying that like one ought not to say such things, right?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. We'll say that. You shouldn't
Okay.
say that because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I don't know how you could ever like if I play you a song, how can you tell me if it's objectively good or bad? How could you ever say that?
You can't.
I've listened to enough music to know I have good taste. I'm good at listening to music.
Good. Okay. I'm good at listening to music. Okay. Alright.
So if I listen to a piece of music and you listen to a piece of music and I say I think that this music is bad and you think it's good, how could we ever objectively resolve that dispute between us?
We would have a debate about it, right? And like we talk about our reasons for thinking it's good versus thinking it's bad, right? And
Yeah, but
then,
what if one of the reasons is like I like this instrument in the song and you're like, well, I hate that instrument in the song. How do we resolve that?
well, that would be one of many reasons, right? Like we wouldn't be able to resolve that actually.
Yeah, that's the point. What I'm
That's
saying
fine.
is that at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of subjectivity from both of us in here that it's going to, by
Absolutely.
definition, have no resolution. So how can we ever make a statement about something being beautiful or not?
Because you want to express that if you feel that, right?
Yeah, but I
Like,
don't express
do you
it as
ever
an
call
absolute
anything
truth.
beautiful?
Yeah, but I don't express it as an absolute truth. I express it as a subjective evaluation.
Do you think that anyone could have access to like an absolute truth? Like, do you
I
mean
don't
like
think it
1 +
exists.
1 = 2?
That
an
so
absolute
mathematically axiomatic things, sure, it seems to be the case. If we believe in like faculties of reason and logic, you have to grant that like math follows, sure. But I think that's fundamentally different than like a subjective evaluation on art.
This is like, it's interesting. I don't know. You should read some German idealist stuff, right? Like this is what their questions are all about, right? Like this is like what the critique of pure reason is all about, right? Like are these sorts of questions like can you make mathematical judgments like same way, or do they have like some sort of closer proximity to absolute truth? How do you know what if mathematics is just like a game we play? You know?
I believe the term is mathematics has an unfortunately uncanny ability to map onto reality. So it seems like that's probably not the case. It's something like that.
So does language, right?
No. What do you mean? Not at all.
I don't think language has like an uncanny ability to map onto reality. Like, you know, when you describe like
language is
free, you kind of know what it is.
well, no, language is just when we say things, we're hoping that you have a similar thing in your mind that I have. It's not a thing that maps onto reality. It's the way that we communicate with each other. It's fundamentally different than, I think, mathematical truths.
Yeah.
Like, we see
Isn't
reality
that
and
true
we
of
make...
mathematical truths, though? Like, you're
No, my
hoping that when you
understanding
say
is that, like,
one,
you can
I think
use-
one is the same thing.
No, you can use mathematical things to, like, predict reality, right? I think, like, if you go, like, really heavy into physics, you can make mathematical algorithms that have nothing to do with things that we've observed before that end up being predictive of things that are true. I don't think language isn't predictive like that.
I think it is, though. Like, have you ever read like you read some like really insightful like piece of literature or whatever, and it's sort of like you can sort of see that these sort of social dynamics or like truths about like human
now
relationships or whatever.
you've moved away from language now, and you're moving on to something fundamentally different, like some like grander concepts that are given to you by
Language. It's stories. Like do stories have predictive power? Like when I tell you a story, like does
No.
that have
No,
any
really,
predictive
no.
power for you?
no, it
No,
doesn't.
not really. No.
Really? None?
I
When
don't
you
think
hear
you
a
can like
story
I
about
don't think you
someone,
can make
you're
like a
talking to someone-
scientific prediction with just a story, right? Like these are different. It's a
Well-
fundamentally different type of question.
Okay, but like let's say like you meet someone and you've heard and they're like telling you about this other person they met and they're saying that, hey, this person they came to my door, right? They came to my door and they said that they just needed to use my phone. So I let them in to use my phone and then they robbed me. And then then this guy shows up at your door and he's like, hey, like I really just need to use your phone. Do you think that story would have any predictive power to you in that circumstance?
Like in a way, but it's just fundamentally different than like a mathematical truth.
No, yeah,
It's just a fundamentally different thing.
yeah, way different.
Because
There's a huge difference.
because you're talking about like the difference between like inferencing versus like deductive truths. They're just fundamentally different things. Like a deductive truth means that the conclusions will always follow given a certain set of premises. Math is built around these types of axioms that given some set of arguments or statements, deductively there will be a conclusion that will always logically follow. It has to. By us being human beings, it will always follow. Things like a guy came to my door, tomorrow maybe another guy will show up and rob you. You don't know if that's 100% true. You're making inferences at that point. That's more inductive or even adductive reasoning. It's a fundamentally different type of truth. It's a different type of thing.
Okay, but is that still a truth? Like I don't know. Like you're like for practical purposes, what is the distinction between these types of truths or like these types of predictions?
I just told you the difference. The difference is that one is like deductively true, necessarily so. It like as in it logically follows. That logically follows part. It means that given a set of premises, like a conclusion will always follow. You don't have the same thing when we're just telling stories or communicating things language-wise. It's just a fundamental.
So there's like lack of certainty, is what you mean. Like there's more uncertainty in language than there is in math.
It's okay. Where? Okay, let's back up. What are we trying to accomplish with this conversation? Are you trying to say that like if I can tell a story with language that might predict a future event, then language can adequately describe something as being objectively true the same way that mathematics can, because mathematics also makes predictions?
Yeah, basically.
No, I don't think so.
Without getting into like the weird. Okay. Give me a moment to think about this.
It's like a very strong claim I have to make in order to like, you know, make my worldview make sense, right?
So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to step into an area here, okay? I'm going to say that mathematics and the ability to understand mathematics, I think is something that is granted to us a priori. I think it's an extension of a human's natural ability to reason. So for instance, if I show
About language.
I'm not there yet. If I show somebody one banana and they understand math and I tell them there's going to be like 3 bananas, the person can understand like what is going to be 3 bananas without ever having to see 3 bananas.
Yeah.
They have like built inside. Or if I show somebody like 2 and say 4 more coming, like you have this a priori gift inside of you that allows you to understand deductively things that would give you the ability to grasp mathematics. That's one thing. So
Yeah.
Sure.
being able to so this is one thing. When it comes to language or what language is, in my mind, what language does is language gives us the illusion of being able to communicate thoughts and ideas to one another. That's what language tries to do. That's what we think it does. What language actually does is all of us have some set of experiences. We can call them qualia if you want, or just experiences. And we assign words to these experiences, and then we share the words with the experiences. And then when we communicate with each other, if I say a word, I'm hoping that I'm communicating an idea, but what I'm really doing is I'm saying a word, hoping that it brings up in you the same type of feeling that I get when I say the word. And then that's what language is. It's a way for me to say utterances that are proxies for feelings and experiences that we have in the world.
Yes. Exactly. I completely agree. That's... I couldn't have said it any better.
Do you agree?
I don't agree with your vision of language.
Okay, what do you disagree with about
disagree
that?
with? So for instance, like you're saying that like it gives us the illusion of communication.
Yes.
Effectively, you're saying that like
Correct.
language is effectively like communication never like really occurs. We
Correct.
Like,
We can't communicate. True. Yes.
So what are we doing right now?
We're
just,
hoping that we have the same
push
set.
each other's levers.
We have the same.
Just trying to pull each other's emotional levers and like manipulate each other into acting and responding the way we want them to.
Okay. Well, so right now, you and I are making a few assumptions with each other. One is we hope we have a shared language, which we do. We both speak English. And then two, we hope we have a shared vocabulary, that we've heard of the same words, and that we can have those same associations. So that's exactly what's happening. For instance, if I were to go up to somebody.
Well, there are the two levels. There are two levels that they're doing right now. The third one is there's a third level there. The third level is hoping that you both understand what you're saying.
And I would say, hey, let's say it's a person that's been locked in a colorless room their entire life, and all they have is like a box to sleep on. And I were to try to say to that person, hey, I have a red fluffy pillow. I can never communicate that idea.
I know these debates.
Wait, hold on.
It's okay.
It's
you don't have to give me the
it's not a debate.
Analogies.
Okay. Well, I'm just.
But
you're
I
disagreeing with something that I
can
consider to be
move on.
like incredibly like easy to
No,
understand.
but
I can't
for
communicate
instance,
a quality to somebody. Yeah.
Wait, let me say something. So right now, we actually are communicating, even though we do share like the English language. We don't actually share the same vocabulary because the way I would use words and the way you would use words, we have mean them like in totally different ways. And taking that into account on my end, I can still communicate with you through the process that like I'm engaging in right now.
But only because we have a shared basis by which to try to draw inferences about what those words might mean. We don't know 100% their inferences. So like earlier when you were talking about literature review, I think you were like...
Reality. Everybody interprets reality in different ways. So, try again.
Oh, they recommended Mills. That's gross. But Dialectics by Hegel or whatever. That's based. Made me think like, okay, this guy's probably a little left-leaning. I don't know that 100%, but it was just like an inference that I drew. Right? We can try to draw inferences about each other's language. I'm not trying to say you're leftist. I'm just saying that even if we misunderstand, or even if we don't think we use the same words, we can draw inferences. But if I were to start speaking to you in Spanish, you would have no idea what I'm saying. Our ability to communicate is gone. Right?
I would do okay because there's a lot of similar roots, right? Like there's a lot of Spanish, like Latinate roots. Like our languages, those two languages are like deeply tied together.
No,
through, like,
hold on.
Latin.
If you don't speak Spanish and somebody starts speaking Spanish to you, you're not going to be able to have a conversation.
If you spoke Portuguese, you could.
I'm not talking about Portuguese and Spanish. I'm talking about Spanish and
No,
English.
but I'm saying this is like specific. Like this is a specific like subset though, right? Like like there are some mutually unintelligible English dialects, even though it's the same language.
No, not. You're missing the point completely. What I'm saying is that there has to be some shared.
I think he's trying to twist things until he's actually right about stuff. But he's going off subject to do it.
Understanding of the words that we're using that we have both individually already mapped onto some concepts for us to have a conversation. I can't convey a new qualia, a new concept to you unless we have some shared foundation by which to work with.
So have we ever produced a new concept, or did we get all of our concepts at a certain point? We don't produce new concepts?
I think we have to have experiences with each other, and then we build off of those And then when we communicate with each other, quote unquote communicate, we're just saying words hoping the other person has the same foundation for experiences. Yes.
Like, we do have the same foundations for experiences. We're human beings, like, in reality.
That doesn't mean we've always had the same experiences.
Well, we have
And it doesn't mean that we are interpreting those experiences the same way.
most of the same experiences.
That
Like, you know, like, we have
absolutely might
hands,
not
we
be
have,
true.
like,
A woman might not be able to communicate what it's like to have a period or a baby. One person in some area might not be able to communicate.
she
what
would
it's-
to a woman.
What?
She would to a woman. I mean, it's not
Exactly,
like
because a
women are
woman has the
confused by
experience
the-
already. That's the point. That's my point. Yes.
Yeah, but they could also communicate to men. It's just more difficult, right? It's more difficult to translate an experience, but it's not impossible.
If
Like,
a man,
you do
if
it
a
through
man,
metaphor.
no, it literally is impossible. Yes, it literally you can't do it.
No, you do it through metaphor. No, like, you can't imagine. Like,
When you
someone
do it
else's
through
pain,
metaphor,
even if you haven't experienced
what
it.
you're, yeah, but what you're doing through metaphor or simile is
You'd have to do it scientifically, like we have to nuance exactly what happens. I'm not going to explain it.
you're trying to hope that you can map it on from another experience. So if I say I have a fluffy pillow, and
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know what the fuck a fluffy pillow feels like, I can never understand. I'm like, oh well, it's like a cat. Then what you're hoping in your head is, okay, well hopefully he's touched a cat before, and then I can map that onto that experience. But you're not actually creating,
Yeah,
you're not
of course.
inventing a new experience in their head. You're just trying to map onto things that they already
Okay,
know.
but if I'm okay, so like, what if you read, like, when you read a novel, like a fantasy or a sci-fi novel, right? It's like taking
And not all cats are fluffy.
place in a completely different, like, in a new realm, and like there's alien creatures, blah blah blah, whatever you want to put it. You can identify with these people, and like you can like relate or empathize with people going through like situations that you've never gone through, and it can
No,
like you can
that's not
feel
true, though.
ways about it.
That's
You can. You've never watched like a war movie.
Hold
and,
on,
like,
wait. Okay,
felt
so
moved,
first,
like watching Band of Brothers
you use
or
like
something?
fantasy. When we talk about like fantasy or science fiction, the things that are talked about in these books are almost always universal struggles. If you're reading young adult literature, it's almost always going to be like coming of age. If you're reading something more mature, it
Okay,
might
so we
relate.
do actually have a basic ground, right? Like, everyone does.
Yeah, there's
actually
gonna be
have
some-
sort of basic.
Yeah, there's going to be some
things,
basic. Yeah, but
right?
assuming you've already had these experiences, yeah, of
Right.
course. But you have to have the
So
experiences.
even if you
already.
haven't had them yet.
No,
like,
if
but,
you-
like,
no,
there's-
no, if
when
you
you're,
haven't
like,
had them yet, you're not gonna
14,
have the-
you can sort of
No, you're not going to have the foundation
understand
for it.
some things about.
No, you won't.
So you don't think you can know anything until you've experienced it yourself?
Until you've had some level of experience. Yes. Wait. How can I ask how old you are?
28.
Okay, so I'm 33, okay. So, like, when in high school, this was something that was repeated to me all the time, right? A lot of the men and a lot of the people going over to fight wars are just boys. They're young children. They're children. It's crazy. They're 18, 19. Well, when I was in high school, I was like 16, 17. That didn't mean anything to me. Like, okay, whatever. These kids are like in college, like, I guess, okay, or they're like seniors or whatever. Now that I'm 33, and I think about like drafts and people being sent to war that are like 18 and 19, that statement hits way different because 18 and 19 are like, holy shit, it's like actually children. That's fucking wild to me. There are a lot of things that I understand now as an adult, and I know you're the same way. You can't, unless you're just going to be like a contrarian,
Oh,
right?
no, for
there are
sure.
some things that
No,
today
for
you
sure.
understand being older
Not
that if they were
disagreeing.
told you when you were 20, you have no basis to understand these things. You
Oh,
can't.
absolutely, because I was stupid. Because
Well,
I was
no,
full
no,
of
no.
illusions.
But not because you were stupid, just because you lacked the experience. You just didn't
no,
have those
because I was
experiences.
stupid.
Well, but you were stupid
no.
because you did.
It's because you're ignorant. You didn't know. You didn't know about these things. I don't know why you're fighting back against that. that makes no sense to me.
Didn't have the
Completely delusional.
experiences. You're not
I was
delusional.
also completely delusional.
No,
You are. When you're a teenager, you're absolutely
No,
delusional.
you're not
Like, you
delusional.
complete-
You're just lacking
Yeah,
experience.
the world that you imagine. Well, yeah, but like, because of that, you like don't have like a real relation to reality. Like you're like LARPing.
No,
all the
you're
time
not.
as
You have a
teenager.
real relation to reality. Your relation is that of a teenager. That's why when you read young adult novels, all
yeah.
of them center on like the struggles
The word is interpretation.
of being a teenager and like finding your right. Like look at like Harry Potter or fucking the Bella
Yeah,
vampire
you're, like,
shit or whatever. It's
you're-
all of it is about the teenager like
Kind of
finding
like-
out who they are and their identity and shit. Yeah, but that's not bad. It's not
Exactly,
delusional.
because-
That's normal.
Well, it is, because it ultimately becomes a tragedy. Like, that's like the tragedy of adulthood, right? Is that like your romance, like your delusional understanding of the world, like your romantic understanding coming from like a sort of more protected childhood into like engaging with the real world. Like, ultimately that's going to hurt you in ways, right? And then like when you like are like actually like an adult, like you can sort of take like that type of suffering more seriously than you could when you were a teenager, right?
Sure. I mean, you get a deeper appreciation for the good and the bad in the world as you become an adult, right?
Yeah, so I would agree with you on there that like you can't like you have to like mature as like a person, right? Before you can like really understand.
Well, no,
anything.
hold on. I'm not going to let you use these words. It's not mature as a person. If you were to lock a 17-year-old up in a room and bring them out when they're 27, they're not going to be more mature. It's that you've collected a certain number of experiences as a person. This is why somebody who's 19
Sure.
can be more mature than somebody who's 22. If the 19-year-old graduated high school when they were 17, 18, got a job and moved out, and the 23-year-old is still living in a dorm doing college. Not that there's anything wrong
Sure.
with that, but I'm saying like the experience
Sure.
collection is important.
Yeah, I agree. You have to be like this is like you could say this collecting of experiences is like education, right?
Sure, a type of education, yeah.
Like if like you're like for instance like if you've only collected the same experience over and over again for like 20 years, like you probably haven't learned that much, right?
Sure, but I'm just saying, I'm like going back to where we got off on this tangent from. I don't know what can you think of a single idea that you could communicate to me that I have no foundation already for? Like, could you communicate a truly novel concept that I have no shared understanding of to me?
Sure. Okay, I have a lot of these. My God.
Just think of like one.
Right. I'll go with this. Like John Dee, the Archmagus of Queen Elizabeth's court, right? During like the Elizabethan times, the Tudor era of England, the time of Shakespeare, etc. He was an alchemist and a magician and various other things, but he had a very interesting interpretation of the Trinity and what he described as he described finding the quaternity within the Trinity, within like the Trinity of the Christian Godhead. What does that mean to you?
The Trinity is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
So how would you find the quaternity within the Trinity?
I don't know.
Yeah, so this is a new concept to you, right?
No, but it's built off of prior concepts that I understand.
Well, obviously, it's built off of prior concepts.
But if I
All
didn't
of our
have
concepts
those
are built off of prior concepts.
Okay, so I guess to go back to like the debate argument, right? Could you describe the color red to somebody without them having seen the color red and make them understand what red is?
It's like a kind of irrelevant question when it comes to like whether or not we can build a new concept off of like the groundwork of existing concepts.
But I don't disagree. Of course you can build new concepts off the groundwork of other concepts. That's possible, but we need that foundational understanding first. If you don't have it,
You need the
then you
prior
can't do it.
concept.
That foundational understanding.
You need the prior concept in order to be able to understand the latter concept.
Is like language, right?
No,
Like-
the foundational understanding is the experience. Language just tries to map onto that. If I get a tummy ache, if something hurts and I look up to somebody, I'm like, blarg, and I point to my stomach and then I have a pain, and later on they point to their stomach and they're like, oh, this hurts, and I'm like, blarg, and they're like, blarg. Now we've created a word that we both understand maps onto something. If later on
Actually, you
I
don't know that.
get the same type of pain in my head,
Yeah, you
and I
do.
point to my head,
You do know that because you, even if it's just two people, those two people have mapped a word to something.
and I go, hublarg, and they look at me and they're like, hublarg. Maybe they understand ha means head and blarg means pain, and now they're, I have head pain, and now we've created
Yeah,
that concept.
I think
Yes.
that's like a very cutesy sort of like just so story for the creation of language, but that actually doesn't work. Like your model here that you provided doesn't work at all because you actually don't know if you're just both using the same word to describe like
Exactly.
a disturbance or an
I agree,
unpleasantness
but now
in
you're
a specific
stumbling
area.
into
You have to
stumbling into a
create new
whole.
words.
You're stumbling
New
into
word.
a
You have
whole.
to say like actually no. I feel more like nauseous. I feel sort of more like
Yes,
carsick.
I
or
understand. Yes,
seasick.
yes.
And, like you feel more like cramps. Like
Yes,
you're more of
I
like a
agree. I
stinging
agree
thing.
100% with you. Welcome
These
to
are
the
different
difficulty
things,
in
right?
all of modern medicine and with philosophy and neuroscience. Yes, it's very hard to know if the things that we say to one another are truly actually mapping onto the same thing. We don't know that. Some would argue it's impossible to know
so
that.
you
right?
have to have like a refinement of language in order to like better communicate
No,
the
it's
exact precise concept.
No,
you're
you
trying
can't communicate that. It's impossible. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Language is the best we've got. But nobody will tell you, like, oh, yes, you can perfectly communicate one experience with another. You can't do that. You just have to hope that they have a similar understanding of it. But there's no way for you to know if it's the same. You can never know that.
Well, you're saying that you can't perfectly do it, but what you mean is that you can't do it with absolute certainty.
We can't do it
There's
with
always,
anything.
like,
You don't even
a
know if
chance.
I'm having a conscious experience. I could be a philosophical zombie to you. You don't know that. You have no idea what my understanding is of the world.
Well,
and how
I
experience
won't
different
treat
things.
you.
Why did he go into solipsism? I don't know. Destiny. He won't say I don't think he's gonna mention the word solipsism, and he would push back, probably saying that he wasn't mentioning solipsism, but he kind of was. It's close. I could be a philosophical zombie or whatever. You don't know that I'm having a. It's that ties into solipsism, kind of.
Might be tempting to treat you as a philosophical zombie, but I'm trying my best not to.
Wait, hold on. When I say philosophical zombie, you understand what I mean when I say that?
Know what you mean? Yes, I know what you mean.
Okay, yeah. So I might not have a conscious experience at all, but there's no way for you to know that if all of my actions and everything are the same outwardly. There's no way for you to know that.
Well, how do I know that I have a conscious experience?
I don't know.
If I just
I
have
think
a
therefore I
delusional
am.
sense of
It's the
having
most
a conscious-
foundational aspect of yourself, right? Is it a demon lying to you the
Really?
entire time? Yeah. But I mean, like,
Really?
even that is
How does
theoretically.
That's the only thing we have is, I think, the 4 a.m. We don't have anything else to go off of. So we're kind of screwed in that respect.
Descartes know that.
What?
Descartes has to disclose this to himself, right, through language.
Sure, and I
like,
think-
he didn't invent his own language, so that's not really the foundational thing, right?
He
The
doesn't have
foundational
to.
thing
He
is
doesn't
when-
have to disclose
to
that
learn
to
language.
No, he doesn't have to disclose that to himself in a language. He's using language to communicate the concept to you, but he can intuitively understand it as well as he
Do
can.
you think in language? Do you disclose your own thoughts to yourself, like in language, or like how do you think?
I
Like, what's
personally
your
do,
thought
but some
process
people
like?
don't. But I do. Yeah.
Okay, so like when you think you actually are disclosing yourself to yourself through language, right?
For some things, yeah. But I mean, like, I tend to have like a
Sure,
dialogue in my head.
so-
But not everybody does.
Like, do you
so,
think
I mean,
you could do that without language? Like, how? Like, what? You don't even know. Like, you can't even imagine what it'd be like to be a person but not utilize language, right? Like, it seems almost impossible.
Sure, but that.
I can pantomiming, sign language. Sorry, language. Pantomiming, like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, you can. I mean, it's not that easy, but it is possible.
It doesn't mean that I'm getting the experiences from the language. I just can't imagine living and not being able to communicate with other humans.
Well, you can get. Can you imagine things like when you imagine? Can you
Yeah.
imagine like someone else's experience?
To some extent. I mean, not perfectly. It depends on the experience we're talking about.
Like let's say like you have like someone who's like extremely good.
Alright, I'm going to tell a childhood story that kind of ties into this. My imagination. When I was younger, 16, I think, me and some friends used to play a game like Dungeons and Dragons. But we wouldn't like have a place set or books to describe it. We just did it all in our heads. We would have real, well, the experiences were real to us. Actual experiences, but they weren't physical. They were still real experiences. Just in our heads, in our imagination. That's what people do when they play Dungeons and Dragons now. They imagine actual experiences that aren't physical, but in your head, you're reacting to it. I hope that makes sense.
Good at expressing their own experiences. Like they're like a master with their language, such that they can like really draw you like a realized imaginative vision.
Think about
of
what
their
that means. When
experiences.
someone is really good at doing that, what does that usually mean? It usually means that they're either describing something so well, or they're using enough examples for an average person to follow along that they can map it onto their own experiences. That's usually what that means. But yeah, I mean, if somebody's just,
Sure, or things that are like analogous to them.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, because you have to
Like-
use analogy because you're looking for other experiences to map onto. Yes.
Yeah, because like metaphor is like analogy, metaphor, all of these things are language because
Yeah.
language is itself just entirely composed of metaphors and analogies.
Okay, well, yeah, but that was my original statement. You seem to say that we could communicate new
yeah.
concepts to
I'm
each other,
saying
and I'm
these
saying that
things-
you need a foundation.
Yeah.
You have to have some shared experience
Absolutely.
originally. Okay, then I
Absolutely.
don't know
Well,
we even
listen,
disagree on
yeah.
that. I think you've moved your position, but
Well,
that's fine.
What I'm saying is that I think I really haven't. I'm saying that language, like you're saying that this is like this imperfect sort of like continually being constructed thing
Yep,
that
it
has
is.
never absolute certainty.
Absolutely.
But, so you're kind of like disprivileging it as like a zone of like the disclosure of truth, right?
Can you disclose truth with language? Yeah, no, I don't. Not generally, no. I mean, it depends, I guess, on
I
what
don't
you're
think
talking
that you
about.
can disclose truth with language, really.
I mean,
Like,
it
you can
depends.
ultimately
It depends on.
disclose
It depends
truth
on.
with math.
It depends on what you're talking about, and it depends on what kind of language you're talking about, or what you consider a language. Because I know that you want to say, like, well, what about math? What if I communicate math to each other? But like theoretically, like math is something that can be like communicated without language, or you can use a language to. But like the language isn't the math. The language is just mapping onto like mathematical concepts. It's a fundamentally different thing. You're not creating math with
Math
language.
is a language.
No. Math comes.
is a
Math comes
language.
before language, right? Languages
It's not
are
true.
Okay. Well, we just fundamentally disagree on that.
It is true. I agree with Destiny.
If the whole
Okay, I'm stupid.
I don't
universe,
think
if
that's
the whole
true.
universe were devoid of humans, would one rock and one rock still have like two rocks?
If the whole world was divorced of humans, there would be no concept of any of these things because they're human concepts. Like there'd be a totally meaningless question because there'd be no meaning in the world either. There'd be nothing to observe the world and be conscious of it. It would just be nothing.
Okay.
No humans or no creatures at all. We see animals like cats and dogs and iguanas and stuff like that is separate from us for some reason. But they're not. We're all animals. I'm not sure why Destiny didn't pick up on that. But whatever. I mean,
If there's no humanity in the universe, then the universe is entirely void and meaningless.
time and place.
Sure. Okay. I'm familiar with this concept. Okay. Well, what do you want to talk about next?
I don't know. Do you like books?
okay, yeah, I'm gonna make this a two-parter. This is, wow. This has been a long conversation. It's been good, but, I just got food, and I really want to eat it. So, this is gonna be a two-parter. I'm gonna post, how am I gonna do this? I don't want to keep the stream because I'm recording it as a standalone video. So, I won't keep the stream, but, I'm gonna call this a random, random reaction. This is random reaction part 1. Then at a later date, I'm gonna put a random reaction part 2. And I'm gonna keep, I'm gonna keep this video as it is. But random reaction part 1. Random reaction part 2 is coming soon. I hope you enjoyed watching. Somebody else just joined. I'm about to turn off the stream, dude. What do you want? No, I'm just kidding. What's up? I'm just fucking with you. Uh, I did a whole random reaction thing. Animal reaction part one. Just go back and watch it. Cause I'm gonna end the stream. And I'm not gonna keep it either. Uh, but I will post this as a standalone video because I recorded it. So I will do part two. I don't know when. Well, as soon as I can. I mean, I'm not gonna go too long without doing a part two. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.